how many people don't know who Simon Parkes is? Well, there you go. So you own the room. No, okay, so he's a wonderful man. I have actually known him for many years, him and Becky. And so I just want to say that, you know, he's a controversial figure, as am I. And I actually think that's a good thing. So just, he has my my admiration, and so does she. And I vouch for him. So, and he's a white hat. I think I'm allowed to say that. So anyway, I think that's enough of an introduction. He has a very interesting past. He was brought up on black magic and white magic, and he also was brought up by people that were part of the intelligence agencies, and he can tell you about that. So welcome, Simon Parkes.
Thank you very much. In America, they don't have scarves. That's why it was very confusing for Kerry to be able to work that one out. What should have been a 2 hour and a bit was 5 hours and a bit. Took over 5 hours to get here. I understand some of you guys have had some issues as well. Right, those of you who were here last year will remember that I said that 2025 would be my last Awake and Aware conference. Yeah. Okay? Now, I can't promise to have ever been told the exact date of Nasara Jasara or the RV, but I knew this would be the last conference. The reason for that is that we are moving on to doing our own conferences. Becky, in September, is off to the United States. She's speaking. Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee. Right, so that's a Connecting Consciousness one. I'm not going because I really don't know where I will be in September, but Becky's going to do a Connecting Consciousness one in America, which we're very excited about. However, it doesn't preclude me doing conferences in partnership. I would be very happy to do a conference in partnership with Kerry, and if we did do that, then we would pay for your evening meal. You would all get an evening meal free. All right, so there are advantages to that. We really didn't know, Becky and I didn't know whether we would be here. Even yesterday, we didn't know whether both of us would be here, one of us or none of us. The situation across the planet is absolutely dynamic at the moment. It is absolutely, even people who commentate don't really grasp. Kerry knows because we were just having a quick chat. It is absolutely dynamic at the moment, and Becky and I just didn't know whether we would be here today, and we are. So as it's the last one in this format, we're going to be a bit different. I am not going to do a audio-visual presentation. I will say some things that you've never heard before. Some of the things will be more useful for Kerry. She'll be more interested in that, maybe. And then I'm going to do an extended Q&A. So hopefully you can, find enough questions to do that. Right. One of the things all, abductees or experiencers talk about is their experience, because that's what they know about. What they don't talk about is why them. And if you do your research or you look around, the key line is bloodline. But after that, people don't know much more about it. So why has this happened, or why has that happened? Oh, well, it's due to bloodline. Well, what do you mean by that? And they don't really know. A lot of people also don't know why, because maybe it's too offensive. Because if you start saying, this happened to me and that happened to me, and I was the king of Egypt, that can't go down so well. And why does everybody come back as a king? Why does never anybody come back as the guy that sweeps the streets? The thing is that we tend to go public if we feel good about what we've had, and if we're not, we don't. So that means that researchers are getting a skewed report, because people who've been tortured the hell out of it aren't necessarily going to be brave enough to stand up and talk. So you do not get a proper pattern with that. So what I want to do is to talk a little bit about me, and I'm going to tell you a few bits that you haven't heard, even those of you who've been following me since 2010, a long time ago. And I'm going to keep some back, because one day I'm going to write a book. And otherwise you'll know it all. So, all right, I wanted to really start off by saying that anyone who goes public tends to draw others to them with information, and sometimes that information isn't valuable, not to the person, but is valuable for the other person. And you begin to get a picture, and I think for me what's been really helpful is a number of, particularly Americans who have been in predominantly CIA families, who reported the same sort of experiences in their upbringing as I had gone through. For those of you who remembered the famous birthday card with my picture on it, you know, it transpired that was for offer in I think it was a Hallmark shop in the Pentagon shopping mall, where they actually had my cards on, and a number of other CIA families had actually got them as well. So patterns begin to grow and show, and in the modern day, and I'm talking about now, the CIA is not the premier intelligence gathering organization it was under Obama. That mantle has now gone to the National Security Agency and to the separate arms of the United States military. So Naval Intel now is the senior go-to military intelligence. And so the CIA will now be reporting through, whereas before that they were their own bosses. So what I want to do is just try to give an insight into when a person goes public like this, they do so because there's something that's happened which has propelled them to that position. You know, I would accept if a UFO was flying over a grassy area and there were children playing there. I reckon there's a 5%, no more than that, 5% chance that if they had nothing to do that day, they would then go and interact. In other words, it's opportunistic. But I would suggest maybe 95 to 97% of everything that's occurred has been pre-planned and organised. It is like that. So if we look at my life, for instance, and I trace it back, and I've noticed that when one faction of one organisation is interested, they pass it to their pals. So let's just call it Organisation A. And let's say they're the bad guys. So they'll pass that target, for want of a better word, to Group B and Group C because they're specialists. And then the good guys find out and they say, well, what's that about? Why are they interested? So before you know it, an individual has got a whole range of organizations, agencies involved, trying to understand what it is about that person and what the other side is looking to do with that person. So it depends, two things, who gets to you first and your own sovereignty. Because you can be offered, and I certainly was offered, opportunities from both sides. And apart from the many, many stories of people being tortured by alien greys, there are instances where individuals are treated more equitably. So you are given a choice and you choose which side you want to be on. And although they'll have a good idea which side you're going to go to, they can't be sure. And that's still the free will element. depending on who takes charge of your operation, your induction, who looks after you, that dictates basically what happens. So I share something quite interestingly in common with, what's his name? Bloom? Daniel Bloom? What's his name? Orlando Bloom. And what's the guy that tragically died? Max Spears. So both Orlando Bloom, who went on and is a very wealthy Hollywood film star, and Max Spears, who sadly was either murdered or committed suicide, depending on which side you look at. And I share something in common, and that is we all went to a place near the seaside called Brighton. Brighton actually had an arm of the Tavistock Institute. It's closed now, but because it was only 50 minutes by train from London to Brighton, CIA, MI5 could put individuals down. If they wanted to do stuff, there's the Tavistock Institute in Brighton. I lived with my mother in a place called Hove, which is about 12 miles or so, 6 miles from Brighton. And a few years ago, somebody went as a whistleblower, showed that there was a CIA and MI5 safe houses there. And the place that we live was literally one street away. That can't be coincidence. So that area is full of safe houses for the intelligence services. And as somebody who interacted with the National Security Agency said of me, your alien mum made sure that you didn't end up in the claws of these other people who got Spears and Bloom. So they made a ton of money out of Bloom, and you got stories of super soldiers. Most of them end up in prison or suicided or murdered. And I'm very, very the grace of God that whoever was in charge never got their claws on me. So what I would do is give you some stories that you've not heard before, which I think might be quite interesting. I hope it's interesting for you, but Kerry will be. All right, so in 2015, a email came in, which I didn't pick up, but the person who was doing my emails at the time, and she said to me, you need to look at this. This is genuine, and it's really interesting. So organised a Skype. You did Skype back in 2015, you didn't do Zoom. And it was a guy who was a college lecturer somewhere in the south of England. I'm going to protect his name and the university. What I will say, it was a polytechnic that became a university. And he said, I've been looking for you, been trying to find you. And I just wanted to let you know that when he was in his 50s, he said, when I was a kid in primary school, so about 10 or 11 years old, he said the head teacher came in with a very strange-looking man, and I was taken out of the class, and I went to what he called a special school in space. Now, Mary Rodwell calls it the school in space. I used to call it the school in the air, because I never realised just how far off the ground I was. So for me, it was the school in the air, but it's more properly the school in space. And he said that he'd attended this and he failed the exam. And it's not a written exam. He failed it. So he said, can you imagine my surprise in 2015 when I was back at the old school and the same guy who came in when I was 10 or 11 years old came in. Now, the reason that he was doing that was when you're in academia, you do things that perhaps most of us wouldn't do. You wouldn't go back to your secondary school so much, and you wouldn't go back to your primary school, because it's just not what Brits do. He was British. But because he was in academia, he felt connected and he wanted to go and do that. So he saw this same guy, and he said that the shock for him was that the man hadn't changed. Now, many of you will immediately, the alarm bells will ring in your head. So he had not aged. He had not changed. So he thought to himself, well, maybe he'll recognize me. So he goes up to this strange man, and he says, do you remember me? And the guy said, of course I do. So our college lecturer said, well, I always wonder about the school. He said, it's such a shame that I didn't make it. I failed. And this man said, you've not done too badly for yourself. You're a college lecturer. You're married. You've got 2 children. And you've got your own home. So he knew everything about him. So unwisely, or very wisely from my perspective, because it gave me a lot of information, the college lecturer then said to him, yes, but if only I'd been more successful there, if only I'd passed the tests, I could have been something, really, really quite exciting. And he told me that the man said to him, well, let's face it, you're no Simon Parkes, and turned away and walked out. Now, this guy had no idea who Simon Parkes was at all, and he went on to Google, did all the searches, wrote, and he said to me, I wanted you to know that. He said, because I hadn't a clue who you were. And he had been told at the time that there were a number of boys, not girls in this instance, a number of boys who were being got ready if whoever their protege was failed. So they were the standby ones. All right, and he didn't make it. Now, there's a guy called Russ Kellett, who is a UFO researcher in North Yorkshire. And he's genuine. I've met him several times, and he's well worth listening to. And I was chatting to him a number of years ago, and he said that, how he hadn't passed the tests. So I said, have you ever done the sword test? And that's a real clue, because someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, they'd be stumped with that, wouldn't they? He immediately came back and said, yes, I dropped it and I was out. Now what you do is you have to throw a sword, you stand here like this, and then you throw the sword up in the air, it spins, and you have to stand underneath it. If you walk away from it because it's going to stab you, you failed, you're out. And you have to catch it. Now, of course, what, as children, you're not told is that's all holographic. But it has a real weight to it. And when you turn it, it sparkles with the light. So you think it's real. All right? And, of course, what most people do is they back off because they don't want to be killed. I remember catching it and holding it. So there are different sort of tests which have got nothing to do with academia. Now, again, the great thing about having this organisation is that people who leave the armed forces come and join us. You're not really allowed to be a member of CC if you're a serving military person, but in America they're actually given our email address, or we're approved. And one woman in front of Carol, my PA, so I'm glad I have some sort of independent people verifying it, because it's really quite exciting, Kerry, where this woman was a PA to a 3-star general in the Pentagon. So a 3-star general. And this woman was his PA, so she went in about 9:30 in the morning with hard copies of documents that needed to be signed. So she went in, and she told us that the general flipped his laptop round, and there's me. This is 2011, and the general says to her, watch this man, he's very interesting, keep an eye on him for me. Now that means that my name was up there in 2011 in the Pentagon. Okay? So why? Why me? I could just stand here and say bloodline, but that doesn't really mean anything, because there's the Alliance, who are Andromedans and Palladians. They can't claim bloodline, because when we talk about bloodline, we're actually talking about negativity, really, because a Palladian is never going to say that he or she is negative. They're not going to say they're in the bloodline, are they? They wouldn't do that. So it tends to be people who have incarnated in positions of authority in many lifetimes, and the genetic material of their physical body is it's not superior, that's not the right word, but it's at the right frequency for whatever needs to exist in that physical body. So a Palladian can do that, an Andromedan can do it, and a reptilian can do it. There has to be A very interesting mix. So when a person is on this earth and they might, I can't say be a key, but they might be a key player, all sides attempt to engage with them. So for instance, in my choice, I had a big reptilian creature who had the sword and the mantid, or mantis, with the purple robe, and I was asked to choose. And I was told you either touch the sword if you want to go that way, or you touch the robe if you want to go that way. So fortunately, I touched the robe, so I went that way. And I remember saying to the alien, did you know I was going to choose you? And the reply was, well, if you've got eyes to see, then you know. So once a game has been played and an individual has made his or her choice, then the other side is supposed to back off. But what they tend to do is to try and murder you, or they try to bribe you or do something like that, because they don't like to lose. The bad side don't like to lose. It's not in their nature. President Trump doesn't like to lose, but he doesn't go around, murdering people. Just the bad guys do that. So the journey that we're all on, and we're all on different journeys, is one that we may have had the opportunity for, but it was never set in stone that that's what we would do. There are plenty of good people who just couldn't manage it. They just couldn't take it to the next stage. Number of people who have had experiences and are just not able to internalize it. And as a result of that, they get very difficult. They get mental conditions, or they become recluse. I don't blame them, actually, because it's so hard to find anybody who will take you seriously. And that's why one of the main reasons we got CC up and running was simply that it offered non-judgmental comradeship. People who have had an experience, and it doesn't matter whether it's seeing a fairy, which do exist, by the way, or whether it was a 10-foot alien. The fact of the matter is that if you have seen that, you know that the world around you as it's portrayed is bullshit, and therefore you must seek the truth, and you must seek those people who are like-minded and have experience, because you all broke free. And that's the problem, isn't it? Because cell phones keep all the under 35s very much controlled. And that's our big issue, how to break free. And that is going to be a problem, and I think has got to come from mainstream. That's the only way that's going to happen, but not from the BBC. When I say mainstream, I mean some of the social media mainstream groups. So if you think about what connecting consciousness is involved with, which is Nasara Jasara and the RV, it is interesting that in 1965, an interesting thing happened. Now, you'll know there's plenty of comment about Walt Disney being a Satanist. There's an awful lot of stuff out on social media, critiquing some of the cartoons and showing what appears to be or purported to be satanic imagery in there. Well, Walt Disney's number one cartoonist or drawer was a guy called Bill Peet. And Bill Peet was a really good, strong Christian. And Bill Peet was just starting on the early days of the Jungle Book with Walt Disney when they fell out. We don't know what the falling out was, and if we did know, I don't think we could talk about it. But they fell out, and Bill Peet went away, and he could do his own children's books because he could illustrate them and do the stories. And I have talked about it before because it's quite important now. It makes much more sense now than it did back then. And he did a number of books, and one was called Kermit the Hermit, which is about a crab. Anybody read Kermit the Hermit? If you're not Americans, want to have been Americans, many more would have read it. Okay, so it's in California, Kerry. Yeah, it starts in California and it goes also to Canada. Okay, so in the book, it's about this crab that hoards everything, whether it's an old boot, an old broken piece of metal, and one day he finds a load of gold coins from a pirate treasure. So he hoards it, and like a dragon, and he won't share it, and he won't give it to anybody. And then he's attacked by a seagull or something, I don't know, or a dog, and a young boy comes and saves him. And he has this road to Damascus moment, and then he starts to distribute this wealth out to only good people, actually. The book's quite clear. It's children, seniors, old age pensioners, and good people. So in 1965, the original Avengers, with Emma Peel and John Steed, did a show, I think called The Grave Diggers, and it was about underground bases under an old mine shaft. And there was a character called Kermit the Hermit. And his real character, and he lived in a tent, just like the crab in the book. And I watched this with my mother in 1965, black and white, of course. And the very next day, my mother had the book from Bill Peet from the local library. So she said, what you've got to do is you've got to copy this book. And here's loads of paper, and here's a stapler. And what I want you to do is to make pages like a blank book, so staple them all up. And then, fantastic to actually get, in the mid-early 60s, mid-60s, felt tip pens. America had them, I think, since 63, but Britain didn't get them 65. And she gave me a set about that long. And they were really like neon colours, you know, bright yellow, greens, brown, and they stunk like hell. It would be illegal now. But it was for a boy. I mean, I was the only one in my class who had this. It was absolutely incredible. It had come from America. And so my job was, for 2 weeks, was to draw literally picture for picture and the writing and colour in with felt pen. So 2 weeks was up, or 3 weeks, and I hadn't finished it. So Mother went back, renewed the book. It's a children's library, you got extra week. And I still hadn't finished it, but that was deemed to be good enough. Now, you know, that is not normal. And when I look back at that story, it was about this crab that had everything, and all the people around him were suffering. And then something happens in his life, and then he starts giving out all this treasure. Well, that's not Nasara Jasara. So what I'm saying is that things are put towards people, but you're not forced to take it. It's choice. It's free will. So we are all on our destiny, what we've chosen, although we've come under pressure from different groups. And there's no doubt that in my experiences, aliens and human scientists work together. So it's 10 years since I've said that, you know, I was in a facility where there were a group of aliens, which we would call mantid or mantis, and then scientists, literally, you know, in the white coats. And on the right side of the room were what I now, from my drawings, been able to get identified as an IBM machine, with all the old tape spools going around and the heat and the noise from the fans. And then over this side of the room, completely different technology. Totally no noise, very, very, very different. And you've got the humans on one side and the aliens on the other. Even today, to me, it's not clear what the role of the human doctors were, and they were doctors. Although somebody did put forward the view that whilst a physical body is very well understood by aliens, the emotional response or the way the brain works is not. And so they'll often have human doctors because the aliens will not quite understand what's needed to be done. And I remember this process, and the doctors were very well spoken, upper middle class. One was an American, that was a woman, and she was telepathic, and then the two guys weren't, and she would be translating, so she would receive a telepathic message from an alien, and then she would verbalize it to the two doctors. And at the end of the process, if you may not know that greys are not able to send telepathic messages pinpoint style. They tend to be scattergun approach. So if a grey would try to speak to Kerry, then maybe 3 or 4 people would pick that up. They can't bring that to a focus, but the more advanced aliens can. And I do remember, because in that reality, you know, your telepathic skills really come to the fore. And I remember saying to the top alien, I don't trust the human doctors. and he sends a message back saying the human doctors are not to be trusted. So it's very interesting how American and British military or intelligence works with off-planet entities, but only to such a position, only so far. And there's no real trust beyond, well, we've got an agreement to work together on this, and it's in our joint interests to do it. But after that, well, we're not on the same page. And that's very interesting, how that worked out.
That story matches a vision I had of an underground base in Los Alamos, where I saw the doctors and the aliens working together. Very similar to, if not exactly, as you described.
This is set 1971. So although the technologies of the humans would change, the layout or the operation, that would be very similar. When individuals are identified, it depends who decides that they manage that person. And my mother, my human mother, always said to me that, you know, you're not managed by the government. The government don't manage you. You know, yeah, if I park on a double yellow line, I'll get a ticket just like the rest of us. But in terms of higher things, it's not really, their role is not to be involved with it. And that's come across several times in a number of instances that have occurred. So what I'm saying is that people don't just turn up and do something. There's been a huge operation behind the curtain to get that, whether it's a person in the secret space program, whether it's a person working for the CIA, whether it's a person in the secret societies. There is no real chance. It's all been properly done. And again, I'll come back with one of the greatest disappointments I have is it's the same old story that the elites of both sides, both good and evil, completely know the truth. And I'm including in this the secret societies. And what I call the ordinary people, and that sounds very disrespectful, and I don't mean it like that, the unawake and unaware, haven't a clue. And, you know, it's the way it's always been, because the elite then can hold that power and control it. When Lord Ivars came up to me, we'd just done a Miles Johnson conference, 2014. So I'd just been a guest speaker at Miles's conference in 2014, and I came out and the guy comes up to me and says, I'm Lord Ivars. I'm not a real lord. I'm American CIA, but I've had the Lord title bought for me so that I can hold my own with you Brits. And I want to talk to you. And, you know, he was in the secret society. So, yeah, he was CIA, but he was in the secret society. And he said to me that I had come across his radar because his employers, as he referred to them, my employers have told me I've got to come and speak to you. And my employers have told me to tell you that they believe everything you say, which is a hell of a shock. They believe everything you say, and you've heard the news that he offered me, you know, certain things. But the reality was that they had no problem with it. And yet, the vast majority of British, American, the English-speaking world has a real problem with the truth, because it is not something that they are taught. And when I was going to do the Kerry Willoughby and the breakfast TV show, Holly Willoughby, yeah, and the taxi driver said, because he, you know, picked me up from the hotel, he said, I used to believe in UFOs when I was young. And I said, why did you stop? He said, because it's not on the news. And that really brings it home. It really brings it home, because you choose your own destiny like that. So this is my last conference in this way, because I will never be able to do this again because of what's moving on. When we talk about the RV, I'm sure there are going to be a few questions on this. When we talk about the RV, we tend to think about Friend Wolverine or Bruce or TNT or Mark Z telling us that, oh, you're going to get all this money. Now, I'm not going to, you know my position on that well enough. But the reality is, that's not really what it was designed for. There are people that are going to receive money, and they will receive money for the work that they have done, which has taken forward the agenda of the white hats. And then there are those people that are going to receive more money for then doing extra work for the white hats. So basically being an agency, shall we say, an individual who's contracted to do work. So that's really what it was about. It's about changing the perception and the way of the world by modelling alternative possibilities. So for instance, you have a hospital, and God knows if you've been to hospital lately, it's awful. And I'm not criticising the nurses at all, although some of them are very bad-tempered now because of the stress they're under. But imagine if you had the funds to set up a hospital that worked completely differently. Every patient who would go to that hospital would then say to their brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, and then ultimately the media and their member of parliament, why can't it be like that? The way to change it is not by forcing people at gunpoint, but it's actually offering an alternative and saying, that's the model we operate. And then watch everyone disappearing from the other services and trying to join that. Forcing governments then to provide a service based on a real connection between government and people, which is broken at the moment and just doesn't exist. So that's really what I'm going to say at the moment. I say we really didn't know we were going to be here. But I'm very happy to take extended questions up to the allotted time. So does somebody want to take the mic and...
Well, it's not that big of a room. I think if somebody stands up...
Yeah, okay.
Clearly.
So Simon, a lot of us here obviously are awake and we have conversations with our friends and our friends think we're completely mad. So my question is around the EBS. Do you think it's going to happen, and if so, when is it likely to happen?
All right, so the question on the EBS, no, it's never going to happen. Not like that. This is just bullshit. Britain really didn't have an early alert. We didn't have that. We lost it when the wall in Berlin came down. And the air raid sirens were all dismantled in this country. So an EBS, or an emergency alert, if it does happen, it will be literally because a Second World War bomb has been found in a location and they want to clear the area, or there's a flood coming. We talk about Texas and why that didn't work, but anyway, hearts and minds go out to everyone in Texas on that. We've lost. I'd say lost. We're out of contact with a number of our CC members in Texas, and it's a great concern. So there will always be an emergency alert, but what the gurus, the commentators said was that there'll be this EBS and it would, be the start of taking down, I don't know, the banks or taking down the bad guys and doing this, doing that. But you've got Trump in. Why would President Trump want an EBS to bring down America? Because he's got it. Okay, he's got it. The problem is that those people who made a name for themselves over the Biden years have had the rug pulled from under their feet. I'll give you an example of it. It was very easy to find people who were anti-Zionist. Israel will be last. Bullshit. What actually happened was Israel is the tool of America to take out Hamas and any other terrorist group. America and Israel working hand in glove. Trump and Israel working hand in glove. That doesn't fit with the agendas that people were putting out about it's the great Satan, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't work. What it means is, in times of difficulty, you have to make arrangements. You have to work things through. So how would an EBS, it is a good question, how would an EBS actually benefit President Trump and the White Hats, it wouldn't. Because they've already got the military. They've already taken out the vast majority of the underground bases. Look at the number of Hollywood superstars that attended Trump's inauguration. Look at them. All those who jumped from the bad side, and in fact Sylvester Stallone is an ambassador, I use the word loosely, between the White House, the executive, and Hollywood. First time ever like that properly. So Trump has actually turned a large number of these Hollywood superstars who have thrown their weight in with him. I'm not sure about Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not clear about him at the moment. But so it doesn't need an EBS. And, you know, how would a bank crash help? How would anyone's mother or father here, who must be very elderly, how are they going to work? How are they going to go to the post office and get their pension because it's all crashed? How are you going to go to the shops and buy anything because it's all crashed? It doesn't make sense. And that's why those of you who have been kind enough to listen to me know what I call for the Americans, the candy store operation, that all you do is you change the manager of the shop. You just change the manager, and that's exactly what they've done. So no EBS along those lines. And I've always said, on America level, Fullerton County or any of the other counties where there's an issue, they could well do that at county-wide level. But there will never be an EBS because somebody has put out messages over the last 4 years that they're going to change the system. And the hardship is, and you didn't say it directly, but the hardship is that our family and friends are waiting for proof that we were right. So if there was an EBS, it'd be proof, wouldn't it? Okay? But that doesn't come as an ex-politician. I know the damage it would do to Britain's economy to have such, or American economy. It would put it into smashing decline. Trump wants a weak dollar at the moment because it's very favourable for trade, but he doesn't want it too low. So no, not in my book. Okay.
Are there two Trumps?
It's three.
So the one that's in at the moment, he's not the good Trump. Is that correct?
That's a trick question. Right, there is only one real Trump. There's one real Trump. And that is good Trump. The other two just play the game to wind people up. One of the things that the bad guys hate is to be played with like that. They really get annoyed. They just don't like it. And don't try to understand it, and that's not me trying to dumb you down, because the level of complexity is playing at different levels of games right across the board. So, you know, why did this Trump, why did Elon Musk say he's going to set up a new political party against Trump? Why this, why that? Well, I can tell you that the plan is to do away with electric cars. Okay, move to hydrogen. That's where it's going to go. Okay, so I guess the head of Tesla's got a role in that somehow.
Simon, on a similar kind of note, is real raw news correct or make believe?
Real raw news gets most of its intel from the military, and I would suggest that most of it is accurate. In fact, they were the only ones who correctly said that there was an attack on a lorry 3 years ago that was containing arms and weapons. They were the only ones who were correct when there was a planned attack on Guantanamo Bay with speedboats, and the Americans, the goodies, put in heavy caliber machine guns and 20mm cannon and defeated that. Because the military now in America are higher than the CIA. You remember that, God, is it 4 years ago when an agent from United States Naval Intel came to visit Becky and myself? And, you know, that's the level, even during the first term of office, where it was moving away from the traditional three-letter agencies, and the power was being given back to Americans. Remember Forrestal, who was murdered, but the official records say he jumped out of a hospital window. He was head of the Navy. You know, why in Star Trek are they called ships? So just as aircraft carriers on our oceans today project physical power to every country on the globe, so spacecraft belonging to the American military project power, not just in this solar system, but beyond it. So the Navy in America has a very, very privileged position going right back to Forrestal. You know, when some of the Majestic documents, and some of those are genuine actually, when the Majestic documents were done, the United States Navy was very high up on that. So it's no surprise that somebody from naval intelligence came to visit Becky and me and spent 3 or 4 hours with us. So we've moved from the CIA now.
And Simon, based on what you just said about the different levels of the game and things like that, how do you interpret Trump's attack on Iran after his campaign promised not to get the country involved in foreign wars?
Okay. There's a difference between an American understanding of what a war is and a British understanding of what a war is. If you don't put boots on the ground in America, it's not a war. So when Trump bombed the hell out of those facilities, there wasn't a single GI American on the ground. So it wasn't a war. Now you may say that's you know, semantics, pedantics, but that's the reality. That's how they work on it. And it was already a done deal. They already knew 10 days beforehand. That's why they moved their uranium out. We're chatting with Kerry on this one. The Iranians were told, well, we're going to hit you, but you can take your uranium out. Why would they do that? Because if you push a wounded dog into a corner, you can't do anything with it. So they let them have the uranium, and then the deal is later on this year that will be privately given to America without anybody knowing about it. And all of the head leaders who were assassinated in Iran were never Trumpers. They were anti-Israel. The ones that have been left are moderates and can come to an arrangement. So what's been targeted is not just senior military leaders, but people who had reached a position within themselves that they could never sit round a table with Israel. So they were taken out. Okay? Anyone else? Keep going, because otherwise I'll go home.
Yeah, I've got a question. Is the UN still going to be around? Because I think he's mentioned removing it.
Yeah. At the moment, the UN plays a very important role. And that role is nothing. And that's a really important role, because what's happening is that whether, I'm not getting into the politics of it, but the UN do not distribute food in Gaza. Okay, they don't do that. An American military contractor does that. So what's been shown to the deep state is that their traditional lines of operation have no connection now with influencing anything. So a number of Ivy League universities are being pushed out and shown that you have got to completely change your who's the head of your operation, if you like. I don't mean the principal, who you really report to. So all of these organizations are being shown to be powerless, and those again of you who've listened to me, thank you. It was, 6 months ago, I did a podcast and I said that there has to come a moment when the executive, that's Trump and his team, are at verbal war with the judiciary in America, and someone's got to win it. Well, we saw that. We've seen the Supreme Court now come out and basically say to all lower courts, you cannot interfere with the president's directive unless you're supporting an individual and unless the operation is just within the state. So no lower court judge now in the United States can back or hold anything back that's countrywide or more than one state. So it's still democratic, but the concept of the position of the president has been redefined, or at least it's been made clear, and there's no higher court than the Supreme Court. So what we're seeing are traditional organizations that we were told to revere, to respect, are being shown to be powerless. And that's the role they play now, to show that they are of no significance whatsoever. Remember that the United States of America pays for 75% of all the salaries of the United Nations. They could just literally, well, I'm not paying you now. But they don't, because it's still useful to show the world that the UN has no power at all. Okay.
What about this? There's a court case in America. It's a Texan chap, and it was about the straw man. And he, when his baby was born, he had a plan that he wanted to keep the umbilical cord and placenta, and but they didn't agree to it, so he took them to court, and he won his ruling, and the whole thing has changed. So anything in capital letters, they are now going to be the debtors. So they will owe us. This is like saying, could this be your Nasara, Dasara?
Right. It's very bad here. And if there are any nurses and doctors here, I'm not criticising you. The system is worse here. Because it's like, we don't have private medicine within the NHS. Well, we do, but, that's not what I mean. And therefore, if you are receiving free, never mind you might have paid taxes all your life, that doesn't matter, if you're perceived as having free healthcare as provided by the government, then they dictate to you everything. And you're treated very badly generally, and you have very little rights. And it's easier for a court because a physical body, okay, they talk about the straw man, the physical body in a country that is so ruled by God, right? Because they are very, very Christian in the United States of America, it would be almost impossible for a court in the United States to deny the mother or father the biological child. So he won, if you look at the ruling on that, and it goes to many hundreds of pages, he won more on the fact that this is a part of me and my wife, this is a part of me, and you've taken it. It's not your right to do that. So, yes, in a way, what he did was he did a ruling which showed that their limits are there. But it's another big jump to go from that to be stopped by the police in your car, and then you say to them, oh, you can't touch me, I believe in common law. Because they'll just arrest you. And you must have seen on YouTube a number of very brave individuals doing that and ending up not getting anywhere, because common law isn't the way we're going. It's constitutional law. Great Britain will have a constitution framed very much on that of the United States. We will not have common law. We will have constitutional law, which has its basis in common law. So naval or admiralty law will be removed, but the attitude of the sovereign individual is above the system isn't going to work, because there isn't a single system, good or evil, that will allow an individual total freedom, because then that organization is threatened by that person, whether it's good or bad. Because we're not yet in the fifth dimension. I'm being very serious with you. We're not yet in the fifth dimension. And, the concepts that you have got will take a number of years to be educated into the heads of the people who are still alive and the younger people who are going to come forward and change the world. So this is the difficult part, because we are really a sort of a wedge stuck into this rather primitive human race, and we're desperately wanting to try and do that, and it doesn't always work because we threaten the system. Okay.
Simon, sorry.
Go on.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When will we see medbeds?
Well, medbeds do exist. Absolutely no question of that. But at the moment, they are on what the Americans call tractor trailers, and they go from one location to another, and individuals are contacted and told, your appointment is boom, 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 and if you're a leader, you are told you may bring a maximum of 2 or 3 with you, and their names can go forward. And it's on the strength of that individual that they have a contract with that they will do that. Hang on. Everywhere. Everywhere. And the point is that at the moment, medbeds are illegal because they haven't been given the full seal of approval by the system, the state. The NHS hasn't agreed to it. They are also secret technology. And the last thing that anybody in the white hats wants is those advanced pieces of technology. Not even the bad guys, not even them, but somebody who runs a counterfeit shop. I can try and get one of those, and then I'm going to make my own. I mean, the people will do that. I mean, God bless them. My grandfather, in 1957, went as part of a trade delegation to Japan. And he was very concerned when he came back and he spoke to the Prime Minister in Britain and said to him, these Japanese are so clever at copying, this is 1957, they've copied everything. What it was, they went to a power plant. And there was a trade where the British government said to the Japanese, there's enough time had elapsed now after the Second World War, look, we'll give you the technology for these power stations, and then you can give us technology for something else. I don't know what that was. So the Japanese sent a trade delegation, and they literally spent a period of days over this power plant, taking photographs and schematic drawings. And what my grandfather was most concerned about, because he says in the power station, which was in the north of England, there was a metal plaque about 6 foot up on the wall, and it said, Platt Brothers, 1901. And they'd actually replicated it. And he said the attention to detail is astonishing. And he said to the Prime Minister of the day, you better watch it, because within 10 years, these people will be outstripping us. And then it went from the Japanese to Hong Kong. Those of you who can remember the 1970s, everything was made in Hong Kong. And then the Chinese. And that's what the Chinese do. They'll take something, replicate it, and I have to tell you, sometimes, very occasionally, it's better than the original. 99% of the time, it's absolutely awful.
Could I ask
Hang on,
you
this
about-
lady. Hang on, this lady. No, hang on.
Oh, sorry. Simon, who exactly controls the shorter and fat Trump? Is it the White House or the...
The black hats don't have any control at all now. They don't. Their capability is limited, but still evil. So, for instance, you know that Trump was nominated for the Special Peace Award, the Nobel Peace Prize, and that had to be taken away because, of course, you've still got Russia and Ukraine fighting, and you've still got Israel and the Arabs fighting. But the reason it was given was because Trump prevented a third world war between India and Pakistan. So what happened was the deep state murdered a lot of tourists on the bridge. There was a deep state, not the Pakistanis didn't do that. The deep state did it with guys who were paid for by whoever to do that. So Trump got in immediately, and Modi said, well, I've got to strike back because I've got a domestic politics here. I've got to strike back. So Trump then went to the Pakistanis and said, you realise India's going to strike back. So the Pakistanis said, yeah, but if they strike back, I'm going to have to strike back and tit for tat. So a deal was worked out that certain targets were hit by the Indians, but India lost a certain number of aircraft, ostensibly to the Russian and Chinese air-to-air missile. And immediately the Pakistani said, great victory, we shot down 6 Indian warplanes. And the Indians said, great victory, we've attacked these targets. It didn't have a war. So what did the deep state do? Who could tell me what the deep state did then? Anybody? Right, no, okay. An aeroplane crashed. You remember that? Only a few weeks ago? That went down. That wasn't an accident. that was designed again to bring India and Pakistan back to the war. And because Trump prevented that, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Because you see, both India and Pakistan have nuclear weapons. They don't have rockets that deliver nuclear. They have them in bombs. And they're, we call them free-fall bombs. They're dumb bombs, they're nuclear. So you had two nuclear powers who have a long history of being at war, could well have caused a problem. And the problem with Pakistan is its relationship with China and Russia. Okay, India is very much close to America, but Pakistan's got one foot in the other camp. So what the bad guys can do is things like that. They can't do anything bigger now. So the madman with a gun who then turns it on himself, the suitcase bomb, that's where they're at. That will carry on for a while, I'm afraid. Okay.
Will the public be allowed, or will the people be allowed to develop free energy technology in the coming, what would be the time span, do you think that would be allowed? Or would it be allowed at all? Or would it be in the hands of just the elite or people?
Right, so great question. What will happen is that there will be a number of patents made available, and they will be distributed. You'll find it by country. So there'll be one particular patent in one country, one in another one. And you would be able to buy that technology. So it's already happening. People who have created it themselves as individuals, they are probably powering half of their home off it already. Okay, I've had it demonstrated to me. There's two types. One is from the ions in the air, and the other is actually from the ground. And it's not overly complicated, but the patents are controlled, and that's the key on this planet. Grab it. That's where my mother worked, remember? She worked at GF Redfern Patent Office, all run by MI5, CIA, every patent office, because, hey, you might invent a new weapon, and we can't have that going to somebody we don't know, can we? So that's what will happen. There will be the opportunity to obtain that, but only when a relationship with the current power companies is organised, because otherwise it would be the destruction of the stocks and shares. How many people do the power companies in Great Britain employ? How many thousands of people feed their families because the wages they get come from the fact they work for an electric company or a gas company? And if you then say, hey, look, there's all this free stuff, it's like Tesla again, isn't it? And look, that didn't work out very well for him or the human race. So it has to be handled differently. But the answer is yes, it is coming, because that is one of the key shackles on the human race. If you can't feed yourself and you can't keep yourself warm and you can't keep the bad weather off you, you really are a paid slave. So yes, in my lifetime. Okay, next. Hang on, you had a go, haven't you? No, you haven't. Come on.
How do you
It's
see
your friend.
Erdogan and shall we say, the Cyprus problem?
Right, be a bit more specific.
Well, Erdogan seems to be swinging between, I say, NATO and Russia and what have you, but also there's the Cyprus, the Turkish and Greece kicking off again.
Right, those of you who have again listened to me know that I've always spoken about Turkey. Turkey is a very, very important country because it sits between the Muslim world and the Christian world. And that's why NATO got in there very damn quick, because it wanted the boundary. It's so funny, you go into the Christian half, you go into London here, and you talk about gin, and everybody wants to phone the NHS and have you carted off because you're mad. But if you go into the Muslim-speaking part, you can find people in the bazaars, and you pay them money, and they will send a gin to attack the person that you've put forward. The number of Indians, as in India, the firstborn son, who in India inherits all of the father's land, no matter how many other families there are, he inherits. The number of other family members who've gone to get him attacked by a jinn to make him absolutely insane, so that a Sharia court or have you, if it's in Iran, because that's again another big one for it, will basically say, yeah, you're mad, you're insane, so the other brother gets your land. So Turkey is a bulwark for the United Nations and NATO to keep the Muslim ideology out, not in terms of Allah, but in terms of their advanced understanding of fourth dimensional entities, which the Church of England knows very well and is frightened. It pisses its pants. You know, when I was a young boy, you could literally go to St Mary's Catholic Church in Brighton and say, there's a ghost in my neighbour's house, and then the priest would come out and do his exorcism. You try and do it now. They won't do it. Okay, that's next question. Kerry.
Okay, I have two questions, and you can choose if you want to answer them or not. So one, in Texas, elite children, 24, I believe, girls, in a big flood, were somehow disappeared. Do you know what happened to them? Because that appears to be a dark side operation. And the second question is going to be about a prediction that's making the rounds right now in America about a huge attack, and they're calling it huge. A second 9/11. So far it's not happened. I just wondered if...
Okay, the sacrifice of children from the evil side is the greatest coup they can get. That's what they live for. That provides them with their energy, but it also provides them with the reason for their religion. And they actually call their satanic forces a religion. I call it, that's their religion. The question, if I was, DeSantis or any of the other governors who understand the business and would go knocking on the door of Texas and say to him, the cuts that Trump said he would make to the Weather Bureau have not actually kicked in yet. So first and foremost, no reduction in funding from federal government reduced the warning. So that's just not nonsensical. However, the second thing is the type of warning and why was it not acted on. Now, the federal system responded, and so did the local at county level responded, because we have reports from our own members where sheriffs, etc., were knocking on doors telling people they had 15 minutes to get out. But the point is, if an evil force, I would be so careful here, but if an evil force was to control a particular facility, then it would be in its interests to not evacuate those children. So what I'm saying is that individuals are still corrupt. Individuals are still split in the mind. They're still controlled by others. Remember when, the car crashed into me, the white van crashed into me. And on the side of the van, its logo was I see you. And when I Googled the company ICU, it said, we specialise in recruiting CIA and FBI agents for doing security. And that was the car that tried to kill me. So individuals can be got in the head. And how I know this is the case is the guy, and he only had one wheel left on his car, he was the first one running over to me and trying to open the door and saying, are you all right? And he had no clue of what he had done. Luckily, everyone else saw it, and it was surrounded by about 15 policemen while we were waiting for the ambulance. And the sergeant who had arrived said to him, well, whose fault do you think it is then? And he just hadn't, because it'd just been wiped. These are the best people from an evil point of view, because they can go out and kill lots of innocent people, and they don't even know they've done it. All they know is when the church bell strikes 6, or they hear the first police siren, they put the gun to the head, because that's what they're programmed to do. So there have been a number of instances in countries where buses with children have had accidents. and schools. Why are there so many shootings in schools? It is because the devil, evil side love hurting children. That's the reality of it. And pardon?
In the UK, cleaning up the satanic and child trafficking covertly at present.
Okay, I appreciate that this is quite emotive, and you didn't put your hand up, but I will take it because it's emotional, and I will take it. Every country in the world, bar about 2, have for the last 4 to 5 years been absolutely at it, trying to clear out this. And what we've been allowed to see with the situation between Israel is that when you have hostages, you start trying to do a deal. If you don't do this, I'll kill one of the hostages. So you've got all these children in underground places. This is what happens, which is never reported. They say, well, if you come down here, we'll kill them all, or we'll do this, we'll do that. So that's why exotic technologies have had to be used in a number of cases to rescue these children. You cannot use conventional methods like that. It's just, that's Hollywood. That doesn't exist, that's Hollywood. So they've had to use very, very, what I call exotic technologies beyond the 4th dimension to rescue these children.
Sorry, could I just ask?
What happens to the children when they're rescued then? They're so
it depends. Well, that's what again, you've got the United Nations trying, and the International Court trying to take Putin to jail because thousands of Ukrainian children were taken by the Russian military and taken into Russia. And the reason for that was because these children were all going to end up the same way. Remember, the thing about Ukrainians is that they can understand Russian. Russians can't understand Ukrainian. So these kids could go into a Russian military family. They've all gone into Russian military families. They've had their names changed. Absolutely. They're allowed, then their real name they can use in the house, but when they're outside they have a different name. Each child has a pot of money which is given to the family to spend on that child for the rest of their lives. So all of these children who were viable have gone to mostly American families to be adopted, particularly the Air Force, not exclusively, but particularly the Air Force have been quite good in that. Where those children have had too much physical trauma or damage, well, they are in institutions run by the military. Okay?
Simon, sorry to bother you, but I had a second question. Did you not want to answer that?
No, I just forgot it, Kerry. What was it?
This prediction.
Oh.
9/11.2.
Okay. No. The problem is that a lot of people who have a very high regard, have gained high regard, tend to put this out. Now, in some cases, it could well be a white hat piece of operation because they want to keep the American people on their toes. Don't let your guard down. Don't think the war's over. This has got to happen. Other people receive information. I was never on Gaia TV. And, if you did stuff for Gaia TV, you had a series of interesting stories, and then the producer comes to you and says, yeah, we want episode 5 or we want season 2. And the individual thinks, I've run out of ideas now. I'm going to have to make stuff up because I want to be in the limelight. And, they've actually said they were hooked, and we know we're talking about, were hooked by Gaia TV because they were paid really good wages. And it was very hard to break free from that. So there are a number of individuals who are paid agents, okay? They are paid agents, others are not, but they just do it because it's exciting. And some of them are not paid agents, but just receive the information. I can assure you that if there was another 9/11 or something like that, there's absolutely no way the military who allowed their president to be murdered in '63, who allowed the gold to be taken out of Building 7, third time ain't going to happen. So you would see some pretty hot stuff in some of the cities. So no, it ain't going to happen. Because the evil side, as it stands today, don't have that. You know, when was it the Kursk submarine that went down in 1999? Okay, you know that the uranium, not the uranium, the warheads were taken. They sent a sub down, a remote sub. They took it, and it was that material that made the 6 or 7 suitcase bombs. That's where that came from. One of the main reasons why did Russia go into Ukraine was to capture the Europe's largest civilian nuclear power reactor to prevent the deep state taking the uranium out. What's the business with Iran? Because of the uranium. Not because Iran is going to be a threat, but because the deep state are embedded in Iran and they want the uranium not to make a nuclear bomb, but to make a dirty bomb. Okay, what you don't perhaps know was that in 1941, when Hitler organized the attack on Russia, Russia had chemical weapons. Of course they did. Everyone had them, but they didn't use them. And it was about 12 or 14 hours, it became obvious to the high command in Germany that the Russians were so desperate they were about to unleash mustard gas and all the rest of it. And what did the Germans have? They had some uranium enriched, which they'd taken from a French university, which had one of the few spinners reactors. It was a French university, and Norway, although the Brits did a very good job on destroying some of the nuclear heavy water plants, but the Germans had enough low-grade uranium that if they put into artillery shells, it would have been devastating. And so the Russians agreed, we won't use our chemical weapons if you don't fire your French uranium. Okay, so there's always this tit for tat that goes on. There could be attacks, but if it's the bigger the attack, the quicker the American military will pick it up. Okay. A few more. Lady at the back.
Do you see us sort of globally kind of moving towards fourth?
Sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Do you see globally a move into the sort of fourth dimension, fourth density, and also do you see any kind of bifurcation split in the world?
Okay. The answer is no, because evil on the planet here is from the fourth dimension. So if humanity can overcome the evil from the fourth dimension, why do we need to exist in it? So we will leave the third dimension, we will pass straight through the fourth and lodge in the lower part of the fifth dimension. I hope we don't get stuck in the upper fourth. See, all the evil is in the lower fourth dimension. At the moment, it's so dense, it's like a tap is dripping water. It's budding off like this, and it's pressing on our reality. That's why so many people now, psychic people, are seeing things, and they're not mad, they're seeing the lower fourth dimension now encroaching on us. We're trying to move up, this bloody thing is coming down, and it's like a bubble. But all of the evil that is manifest on earth was given to us. It was given to us by the lords and masters many, many thousands of years ago. And that's their control system. But if we can overcome that, we don't need to prove ourselves. Every group like the Palladians or the Andromedans, they started in the third dimension and they evolved and they moved up. Every planet is a living being, and what she wants to do is to move up and evolve, and she wants to take the sentient life forms with her. If those life forms want to, here's your bifurcation question. So nobody is going to suddenly disappear in front of you. Like, oh, I'm very spiritual, I'm going to the fifth dimension, and you're not. That's not how it works. What's going to happen, is my opinion, is that people will become sterile. They will not be able to have children. And over a period of time, those who are unawake and unaware will not have children. and those that are, because their frequency is aligned with the frequency of the Earth and it's working together, they will have kids. And over 100 years, you will see a complete change in the populations of the world. And that's the gentlest and the fairest way to do it, because it still gives people the chance to wake up and catch up. Okay? Lady with the glasses.
A lot of us here are CC members.
Good.
And we're absolutely desperate to get on with, bringing the great things through the projects. And I appreciate the fact that, we're not maybe going to have the EBS, we're not going to have the RV come and kind of wake everybody up. How are the funds going to then come to you and then for us to be alerted, or we're ready to go?
Right, okay. So the arrangement will be, it will not be a scattergun approach. You won't get every country going at once. That's not going to happen. Countries that are approved to receive the funding will be activated, and Connecting Consciousness has its volunteers, its leaders, its coordinators, it has its members, and as each country is activated, I will then discuss with the coordinators, the volunteers, what we're going to do. The difference with funding is that the governments of the world will not have access to it. It's not their money. They can't say yes or no, and if they say, well, we're not going to give you planning permission, well, we've got a phone number that we ring. So what will happen is that somebody will say to me, these are the list of countries, this is the order they're going to go in, this is the amount of money per country, and this is what we're giving CC, get going. How will you know? Because coordinators will be told by me that this is what we're doing. Please do not ever expect the full SP. You're not going to get it. It will be on a need-to-know basis. I only need to know what I only need to know. I mean, lots of people sitting at home, and I'm not going to start going on about bloody Zim notes and Dina notes, because hopefully you will know my position there. But, they don't need to know. I've got my Zim notes. I need to know when the RV's going. But you don't need to know. You don't need to know. They just want to know. And so there are a number of organisations across the planet who will deliver projects, and it will be incredibly exciting, and we're all chomping at the bit, but the reality is it will go when it's decided it goes. And as I said to you, this is my last one in this venue, so that should give you a good idea. Okay.
Will it be this year?
Luckily, I know you. Guy at the back.
What's the shelf life on Sphere Carbon?
Right. All right, politically now. Britain, you thought about 18 months. Britain is about a year and a quarter, a year and a half behind America in terms of what's going to happen. I'm an ex-politician, and if you ever find any of my stuff, you'll find that I did a good job. I did a good job. I was proud of it. But the higher up you go, the more corruption you see. And if you don't get out, I didn't lose an election. I left. So I just didn't restand. And what you'd see with politicians is they have the most amazing ability to survive. And no politician does anything that will destroy them. But that's what the Tories did, because they were under orders to do that. So what do you do with the Tories? They believe in tax cutting, so you can't do much there. But what you can do is immigration. All of the elements that the Tories were supposed to be strong with, and looking after the tax base and all of this stuff, mortgages, the lot. So they've destroyed themselves. So the Labour Party comes in. Now, most of you are old enough to have read decent history books. Who can tell me, there's no presents now, we've got Kerry to blame for that, and that'll be my last passing comment in the end. Who can remember the name of the British Prime Minister after the end of the Second World War? Clement Attlee. Clement Attlee. Clement Attlee would be turning in his grave to hear that a Labour Prime Minister has put an order in for 12 American aircraft that can deliver nuclear bombs. He has ordered 5 new nuclear power stations. He has ordered the setting up of the British Home Guard. That's not bullshit. He's actually looking to set up the Home Guard. He wants to pay up to 5% of British national product towards the arming of the forces, even though you've got a horrible pothole just opposite your road and the ambulance takes 45 minutes to get to you. So if you have a stream from 10, or it could be 12, 12 is a much better number where I come from, 12 to 1, and 12 is your fanatics, your people who go out every day and deliver Labour Party leaflets, and they knock on the door and they phone and they do all of that, and you've got number 1, which is like, oh, I just go out and vote Labour. What I've just described to you, he's lost 30% of the very people who win elections. Nobody is going to go out and campaign for Labour now, because it's just absolutely destroyed. And it's not just so much the attack on the social side, or the payments for parents, or for pensioners, or for PIP or any of the social security payments. It's to do with the whole ethos of what people thought the Labour Party was. So I predict to you that this time next year we'll have an election. It doesn't have to be, because he's got 5 years, but I don't think we're going to go that way. I don't believe that Nigel Farage will win a majority, but I think, sorry, didn't make me jump, but I think that what will happen is that Nigel Farage will win substantially enough votes to split groups from the Tories, and that way he's going to form and be the Prime Minister. So it'll be very interesting. So we are seeing the deliberate implosion of the main 2 political parties. And I'm sorry if you're a Liberal Democrat voter, but my understanding is that they have not scored enough to be considered worthy of destruction. Sorry.
Right, there's a lot of talk about the ground solar minimum and
Yep.
the pole shift.
Yep.
How does that?
No, it's not going to happen. There will be huge energy changes, but we are due for a magnetic shift. We are absolutely due that. We're overdue that. So I think again within my lifetime you can take a compass and north will be south and south will be north, but it's not the poles moving. That is the magnetic field turning within the Earth, and it's done that several times in the last sort of million years. You cannot turn the poles literally and expect anyone to be left alive. So we don't really talk about aliens very much, but they just wouldn't allow it. The great thing in Rendlesham, 1979, the aliens deactivated all of the nuclear weapons that were held in Rendlesham. At the time, the Soviet Union had all the nuclear weapons stored in Ukraine. They deactivated all the codes for that. There could never have been a nuclear war because we were about 12 to 14 hours away from a nuclear war at that point. So there's no way that anything... This is the greatest experiment ever. This is the most beautiful water world, using their language converted to English. This is the most beautiful water world, and they travel light years, whether through a portal or what have you, to visit this place because it is so unique. They I don't know, lottery tickets, but they literally wait years. Remember, some of these creatures can live up to 2,000 years before they have to regenerate. But they will wait years and years on a list to come here. And those that are part of an elite delegation will even go to Nevada and play on the roulette wheels. all dressed up. And some parts of America are so crazy that they pass. It's fine. It works. So, you know, we are not going to be allowed to destroy ourselves, and there'll be no natural force that'll destroy us if anyone can help it. Okay. So I'm going to go over here. Hi.
So last year, around October, November, there were lots of sightings of what they call drones. A lot of people are saying IFR sightings, but actually they're spaceships, they're UFOs, whatever. What's your personal take on this?
It was a deliberate attempt to try and break through and get disclosure going. And it was clamped down on. Kerry, I know all about this. It was clamped down at the very last minute. They got the green light to start to allow the public to begin to appreciate that we are not alone. And then somebody got cold feet at the very top and stopped it. That's what happened. And it's re-emerging now. I was chatting to Miles before I came on, and he's going out to America, and he's been having some conversations. And I can assure you that with the removal of the CIA, and we were talking about this, Kerry, with the removal of the CIA from this decision-making process, and it being handed to the American Armed Forces, who have set up a completely separate committee, I expect once Trump's got his hand on the midterms, which is next year, once the midterms have been agreed, I think we'll find some real proper disclosure. So it was stopped. It was on its way, and they stopped it again.
I'm aware that they were the so-called non-self-serving rays or aliens or whatever.
Trump has been to what loosely called Area 51. Trump has had briefings over and above every president except possibly Eisenhower. Trump is fully up to speed with it because of his own connections in what we call exotic environment. Trump was chosen, go back to what I said earlier, Trump was chosen a long time before somebody came to him and said, hey, please, will you be our front man? He was being got ready for it and all the rest of it. So he wants it, but at the end of the day, when you are, he's the C&C, if Commander-in-Chief, but if you're the chief executive or the boss of an organization, if you end up not listening to the people around you, then you totally go wrong. So he listened, rightly or wrongly, to the people around him and the argument. Remember that, you know, a number of presidents wanted to disclose, and it was the Catholic Church that stopped them. Well, this time it wasn't the Catholic Church that stopped Trump. It was the military saying we're not ready yet to handle the fallout from it. Anyone else? Hi.
Generally speaking, do you support reform, and do you think Farage is on the good side or the dark side?
I don't vote. Having worn the T-shirt and been a politician and asked people to vote for me, and having fought as hard as I could, the ward that I represented was called Kings Park in Hackney. And at the time, the left of the Labour Party, I'm going to get shot for this, but not literally. The left of the Labour Party didn't want people out of council houses because they saw what Margaret Thatcher did. And if you take someone out of a council house, they stop voting Labour, they start voting Conservative. And so there was a real push from the extreme left to keep people in shit. In Kings Park, the properties were built in the 1920s and 1930s. They were properties built after the First War to house people. And I, as chair of the housing subcommittee, I was a front bencher, working with another guy, I'm not going to say his name because it got his permission. We were the second council in the whole of England who went to what we call now social housing. never been heard of, and said, we've got 6,000 people living in abject poverty. We can't even afford to do anything for them. It's just awful. If the community vote to go with you, will you guarantee no rent increases? I don't know how many years we got and all the rest of it. So I organised public meetings with the officers and the community who turned up, and you'd get maybe about 500 to our meetings. And we had presentations, so Shaftesbury Housing, several housing associations came and they did a presentation to the people. And then I asked them, right, which one do you want? And the officers are like, Christ, we don't do it like this. You know, we go into a locked room and we go into a committee and no, I'm not having any of that shit. And they wanted Shaftesbury Housing. So right, that's what the people want. That's what we'll get. And of course the left hated me because they said, you're taking these people and giving them to capitalists. No, I'm not. Shaftesbury Housing was an evangelical Christian organisation. And I was so pleased when it was a vote. They had to have a vote, and 75% of the electorate voted to leave the council. 75%, and it was fantastic because the Shaftesbury Housing would turn up and say, "Okay, which colour carpet do you want? What type of carpet do you want? How many? There's 4 different kitchens you can choose." But that's how we should treat people. Not from this political ideology that you keep people down and, if they've got nothing, they'll vote because, they're crumbs. You've got to trust and empower people. And is it about you as a politician always being in? Or is it about you saying, I'll support people, and when I'm no longer needed, thank you very much, I'll go on a holiday? Because that's what it's about. It's about, should be empowering and supporting people. That's why I set Connecting Consciousness up to empower and support people. And then when Mr. Wolverine says, gurus, why are people calling themselves gurus? Gurus sit on the top of a mountain. This insidious stuff that's pushed in through social media. That's why we have to be very careful who we listen to, because the language they use is not good. Ranjit, you did have your hand up.
There's a couple of questions. So thank you for wonderful information as you always have.
Thank you.
First one is with the PDD and Cash Hotel saying Epstein is dead, will it ever come out? And the other one is the voting stuff throughout the world is corruption. Will we ever change that? And how will we do it? It's in every single country.
Yeah, it is in every single country. The problem is that if you take India, you've got a relatively good man, you've got Modi there, and he's got good people around him. Unfortunately, where you have a caste system, or you come to Great Britain where you've got a class system, or you go to America where it's a different sort of class system. It's, Harvard maybe. Those people are the ones who say, I am better than you. Okay, I am better than you, so I'll make the decisions and I'll do what's right. And so they don't mix with the people. They go and meet with their own groups and they form these secret societies and these clubs. And that's where it all comes from. So will it change? It has to change when the people of the world are empowered and don't need their services. So Connecting Consciousness will play a huge role in Africa. A huge role in Africa. And that's a really important way of being able to show, I say corrupt governments, but governments that have never really been shown how to manage. They try to run it on a tribal basis, and I'm not being disrespectful. Remember, I'm a white African. And so you've got to show people, and you've got to wake people up in the sense that they say, I'm not standing for that. And I don't want riots, but they just basically don't use the services anymore. And that means when medbeds come out, what's going to happen to the NHS? So these are the changes, but it's not going to happen in just 1 or 2 years, Ranjit. So it will change, but over a long period of time. Okay.
How about Epstein?
Oh, yeah. How many here think he really is dead? Epstein. Okay. So the deal always has been, if the information you have is great enough to do a deal with, then the White Hats will do a deal with you. But only if it leads them to more senior people or a network. So you can't do a like for like. There's nothing in it for the White Hats. But there has to be a real game for them, because they have a finite amount of resources. And if you could take down a network because somebody gives you code numbers and locations that you can take down in a day, why wouldn't you do that when it's going to take you 6 months maybe to do it? So lots of people have disappeared because they've gone under a protection program. But I can't see Elvis coming back. I don't believe Elvis is in the protection program. I'm sorry, Kerry, he's not going to come back. Elvis. Yeah, but Elvis himself isn't going to come back. No.
Regarding the connecting consciousness, of which I'm a member, I filed with the Trump team before he became president, and it was positively received. A project for all the children coming out of child trafficking.
Yep.
Later I found out about CC, so then I joined, and I filed it for you. It's called HEART,
yeah,
which is Healing, Education, Arts, Reform today. Yeah. And I know that you will have a lot of projects to look at, but what would be the timeline, something of that importance would look at? I've been over 50 years in my profession and an international choreographer, but that's beside the point. But it allowed me to create mega festivals for humanitarian causes.
Yep.
So this is my specialty. So I need to give this, because it's what I've worked for my whole life. So just that one.
Okay. That's helpful, because connecting consciousness, as you all should know, has encouraged you to give projects over, which we will fund. Well, I won't, but I'll get the money and I will then fund those projects. But we have been asked to do other things as well. And if you have approached the executive and you say it was positively received, it wouldn't surprise me. Which country did you put it in for?
From California.
So the state of California.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Every country that I'm aware of has an individual who's not elected by government, is not part of the deep state, has very strong connections with the White Hats, and each of those individuals will oversee that side of it in the world. And I would not be surprised if, we go to America and someone says to us, here's a few very interesting projects which people have sent to us, and we would like you to, be involved in that. So it may well come back to connecting consciousness. It might not. It might go somewhere else. See, the thing is that the veterans have a very, very strong say on it, and also the Air Force and the Navy have a say. And it also depends on, when you talk about California, there's an awful lot of politics in that, which is not so prevalent in Florida. So, again, that is a difficult one, though.
Yeah, it was filed before you made his cabinet.
Sure.
So then I was told, you really should be in touch with Bobby Kennedy.
Yep.
And his desk is so full.
Yeah.
So.
He's not the right person to go to for that. No, they would have done that because they just saw him as the right person. And also, they're not always in the need to know themselves. But the military in America, God bless them, and I mean that really, have learnt a long time ago that they never had the man or woman power to deliver what they wanted. And so, above all other militaries in the world, the Americans learnt to contract out. The Americans, more than any other armed forces, contract out to civilians to deliver what they do not have the expertise to deliver. And so there are a number of operations which are not military, but will become part of that rollout. Okay?
I just trusted that an organization like CC would be really humanitarian oriented and would want to take something like this on. It's a re-educational program.
I'm just saying that we're probably going to shut this down.
Fine.
So when you're ready.
Thank you.
One more then. Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Excuse my accent, I'm from Iran.
Listen, you don't need to apologise about your accent. I couldn't hear you because of the noise, not because of your accent.
I was really thrilled when you talk about medbeds. I have a brother, he's got MS. He's a good soul, he's a Trump supporter, he's open-minded. And each time, he lives in Manchester, and he's a young man. And each time I talk to him, I say, hang on, the medbeds are coming out. And now the medbeds are out, so, I mean, not publicly, but I'm sure there are so many people like me in the same situation, like with their loved one. So how could we speed this up to those people who really need it?
Okay. Well, you can't speed it up. You can't speed it up. Well, what it hinges on is I'm not running away from your question. What it hinges on is the determination from Trump and those around him to take on the pharmaceutical industry. That's the key. There are millions of people. That's the problem. Millions of people who have an illness that either science can't or won't put right. Okay? But the game that is being played is for the consciousness of the human mind across the world. Now, you could bring out medbeds, all right? Did anybody see any films of the French Revolution? Marie Antoinette let them eat cake, standing, handing out loaves of bread, and hundreds of thousands of Parisians pulling the place down. You couldn't manage, the American military couldn't manage in every city, everyone fighting to get a medbed. It has to be done in an ordered way, okay? And that will only happen once we've got the Sara Jasara, because that money needs to come available to be able to counterbalance the evil in the world. All right? That's what this money is about. It's about taking the power away from those that have ruled the world since the year dot. So you as individuals can't do anything, except you can actually do what you're doing, which is believe and hold it together, because how tragic if somebody dies on Monday and on Tuesday the medbed's available.
Thank you so much, Simon. It's actually been a blast.